Tēnā koutou katoa and good afternoon. Welcome to the Council meeting of Wednesday the 17th of May.
Who's running out?
First of all, I'd like to call for apologies, and I have an apology from Mayor Neil Brown. And our first item today is the declaration by Rob Mackle, and I'd like to invite Rob up to make your declaration to the lectern, please. So just come around the front.
That'll do. Yep. I, Robert Errol Mackle, declare that I will faithfully, impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Ashburton District Council the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Ashburton District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002 and Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
Thank you. We just invite you to sign. Yeah. We'll just move to have a couple of photos. Thank you all and welcome, Rob. It's wonderful to have a full table again. Next we have extraordinary business, and I'd just like to advise the Council that the presentation from Bill Eschenbach will be taken in public excluded, and we will decide on a time at that stage. So Bill is due in at about 1:30, and so we may have to move into public excluded and then back into open meeting again for the rest of agenda, but that will just depend on what time he arrives. I'll pass over to Hamish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's on the basis that the information that Bill wishes to update councillors with is sensitive and not available to the public, so that's why we're making that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. We have confirmation of minutes. So I'm on my paper version today. So page 3 of the last council meeting. Page 3. Sorry, do I need to move that? Councillor Ellis?
Apology for the Mayor. Did we?
Yes, I did that right at the start. Yeah. Okay, so confirmation of the minutes from our council meeting on the 3rd of May. and I have that on my page 3. Any corrections? Page 3, page 4, page 5, or page 6? If not, can I have a mover and seconder that they have been read and confirmed? And I have Councillor Cameron, Councillor Lovett. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, thank you. Carried. We have the minutes from the Methven Community Board meeting from the 1st of May. Can I have someone move that we receive those minutes? Councillor Ellis, Councillor Brown. All those in favour, aye. Against, no, carried, thank you. Next, page 11, we have the Road Safety Coordinating Committee minutes. Like a mover and a seconder to receive those minutes. Councillor Hooper, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. And last, we have the Audit and Risk Committee minutes from the 10th of May. I'd like someone to move that we receive those. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Ellis.
Can I ask a question on the Road Safety Committee minutes?
Oh, sorry.
Is that all right? Or
Yes.
it's got there, which I was a little bit disturbed to read, under general expectation of increased incidents of State Highway 1 south of Ashburton when Timwood Corridor improvement work begins. How are they going to mitigate that? Did they discuss that? Any mitigation on that aspect?
Hamish?
Through Madam Chair, I'm not directly sure of that, but I think the likelihood or the possibility of that occurring, given the disruption, is simply being noted in the end.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether specific initiatives taken or can be taken to manage that issue. They're certainly noting the issue, though.
Yeah, it's good that they note it, but it would be even better if they did something about it whilst noting it.
Yes,
in my opinion. So I think next time they come in, we need to ask them what their strategy is, you know.
Traffic will be delayed because of those works, and there's no mitigation possible for some disruption. And
No.
no.
That I accept that, and that's not my point. My point was, are they gonna the increased incidents? I assumed those were, fender benders and banging into people and increased accidents. So I'm assuming that we don't just have to read that and then okay, well that's fine. I assume there's some sequelae to that, and that they're going to deal with it. Or
We can certainly expect that they'll have adequate signage, there'll be 1 million road cones, they'll have people on stop-go, they'll have all the measures that we would expect for a major road works. Yeah.
And I don't think they specifically talked on the fender bender incidents. I think it was just general road congestion as well.
Delays.
Councillor Hooper. and-
Delays. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, so audit and risk, Councillor Cameron has moved, Councillor Ellis has seconded. All those in favour, aye. Against, no, thank you. Carried. So we will now move on to item number 8, which is emergency works funding. And welcome Mark up and Neil up to the table. We have the report there. Do you have anything else to add, Mark?
No, nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Councillors, are there any questions of this report? Councillor Wilson.
It's just an observation, and I know the answer, but it's an observation for you. Did this impact on the maintenance of our shingle roads for the the budgeted year? The amount of works we do, was this extra to that or part of that?
Mainly extra. There were some parts of it in there that we originally had for remetalling where there was some damage, but when the work was actually done, it only required a maintenance grade, so that was all the cost was. So that's pretty much the only difference. Where we had to do extra work, repairing scours, bringing metal in, that was the cost of emergency works. It was just a maintenance grade then. It's just a cost of our routine maintenance, but not a big cost overall. So.
Any further questions? No. We have a recommendation there that council funds the local share of $932,602 for the emergency works in 2022-23 from the dividend reserve. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Brahm?
Yep.
And Councillor Todd would second.
Thank you.
Speakers for or against? None. Would you like to speak? No. Councillor
Can I
Cameron.
just ask- I've missed the
You've
question.
missed, yes, you have. What?
My question was, can you insure your roading network from heavy weather? No, you can't. Thank you, that was my only question.
Thank you. If there's no debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you. Next we have item number 9, which is the engine braking noise. Do you have anything to add to that, Mark?
No, nothing to add.
Questions? Councillor Brahm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why is it only from State Highway 1? There's a lot of other trucks coming in from the side roads. Are they not counting? In the recommendation, it basically says State Highway 1.
It was just State Highway 1 what the request was made for State Highway 1, particularly entering from the north on State Highway 1. It can be applied to all state highways, though. And in the transportation and parking bylaw consultation, methane was mentioned as well, so we'll have a discussion about that as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
So it's not just State Highway 1, but that was what was specifically requested.
Okay, yep.
Councillor Cameron.
When I read the accompanying report to this from Waka Kotahi, it said if you have too many signs, they reduce the impact of the signs. Where have we got signs in our district?
Signs across the whole network.
With regards to no engine braking.
We haven't got any of those. It's more other signs generally, and that's the comment that's often made. You can have warning signs for lots of things. Do they make a difference? And for example, you've got regulatory signs for speed limits, and it's there informing people what the speed limits are. It doesn't necessarily people obey them. So having a no engine brake sign, please no engine brakes, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to not have the use of engine brakes. And so that's sort of been their policy, how effective they are. I've got no evidence one way or the other how effective they are. That was a comment that made by Waka Kotahi.
Well, it was in the Waka Kotahi.
Yeah, it was their response. Yeah, because of the roads they look after, they get more requests for these than what we have in the past. So, yeah.
So we have no signs in our district. So surely if we put a couple of signs up to say no engine braking, presumably people will not have sign fatigue on the first visual sight of one sign in our district.
Yeah, not for those particular signs, I agree.
I think, Madam Chair, I read that as a cumulative sign fatigue, not specifically no engine braking signs.
Okay, thank you. So I'm talking about engine braking signs, and the recommendation is we just carry on liaising with big truck operators and a certain number of trucks. And as I understand, we're getting more and more larger trucks on our roads. Is that a fair comment?
Well, there's larger trucks with high productivity motor vehicles are permitted, so they carry more weight with extra axles as well. So
That's right. So presumably we may expect more rather than less engine braking based on the size of the trucks?
Not necessarily. The engine braking and the leaflet that's attached, it's mainly been used for downhill, slowing trucks down downhill and things like that. My view is on the Canterbury Plains, I'm not sure they need to have engine brakes too much at all, particularly coming into Ashburton and driving through Ashburton.
But clearly it has been a problem because we have had complaints, have we not, about engine braking?
About the noise, yeah.
So why don't we try and mitigate the engine braking by putting the odd sign up to say, please don't engine brake?
Yep, and we can do that. That's one of the options.
It was not the recommended option, but that would be my recommended.
Yep. That was because Waka Kotahi didn't support that. But if the council really wanted to do that, they would say, give us the okay to install it. It'd be a cost to council rather than Waka Kotahi, but it's a cost of a sign putting in, maybe on each approach to Ashburton, one to Timwell as well. So.
Can I just ask you indulgence for one more question?
One more question.
It's on State Highway 1. We have had complaints from our community with regards to the noise around the engine braking. Waka Kotahi, there's an issue with sign fatigue, but we know from Waka Kotahi's experience with their roadworks that we have some issues with their street designs and all the rest of it. We want 2 signs that might cost X amount of dollars. So if we say to Waka Kotahi, we want 2 signs and no engine braking, they'll say, well, pay us $1,000. Is that what they'll say? Or whatever it costs.
Hamish, did you want to comment?
Essentially, yes.
Yes, just go back half a step. Council is free to adopt whatever solution they see as appropriate for this problem. What we have done is present a report based on the advice from the managers of the State Highway and the acknowledged experts in Waka Kotahi, plus our own knowledge, and recommended working with the industry and not putting signs up. If council wishes to adopt something other than that recommendation, you are of course free to do so.
I would like to make an amendment to that. when
Okay,
the
we'll
time-
take questions first. Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask, probably half answered, the engine braking, it's normally used on hills where we've got flat land coming into Ashburton, and our 50k signs on the north side of town are quite a wee way out. So trucks wouldn't be engine braking with it, you know, once they hit Racecourse Road, should they be? I'm just wondering, is it a complaints because of the big new business on Racecourse Road, worrying about trucks and stuff, or where are we heading with this?
Well, complaint of noise generally, they use the engine brakes when they're slowing down to meet the 50k speed limit. They do use them through the township as well, which I've noticed myself. Okay. The complaint has been previously from the motels on the corner as well, so it's not the new building there that hasn't had anything to do with it at all. It's just a complaint about the noise generally, which can be heard from quite a long way away. I used to live over a kilometre away and I could hear it some days. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this was a submission to the 2021 long-term plan. So that the development on that corner, it was still a green paddock when that submission came in, so it's got nothing to do with that specific site.
There's been another one since, and I was wondering whether it's because of the big business there and they're thinking there's going to be more trucks and stuff
My
coming
recollection of that submission, Madam Chair, is it was someone further into town, not on that corner.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark, how many complaints do we get in a week? They said a lot, because I can hear them now and again, but I mean, it doesn't really worry me.
There's been 2 complaints that I'm aware of for this particular, for engine brakes, yeah. So the submission of the long-term plan, and there's one through Councillor Leatham as well, last year, they came in as well. So we don't get a big number of them, no.
So there's two people who...
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And to ask a question, that's just in regard to State Highway 1, that's because I did have some additional feedback from Forest Drive with the air braking, and I advised them to put a submission into the transport and parking.
Yeah, and that was
plans.
received, yeah.
And that was received. I couldn't find it when I looked at it for it yesterday. Councillor Wilson.
Can we expand that to not just be the heavy transport industry when it becomes the industry body, but it can be the local operators, because that would give us more bang for our buck. But to change the behaviour of trucks that are travelling from Invercargill to Christchurch will be particularly difficult. But to educate rather than fine the local industry would be a much bigger bang for our buck, effectively.
Yep, agreed.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Option 2's the request to Waka Kotahi. What's the likelihood of that happening, of them saying, yes, let's do that, as far as the signs go?
The indication in the email we got back was that if council really wanted to do it, they wouldn't stand in the way. They would say, yes, we could go ahead and put the signs up. So. That was their response. It's not something they recommend, and that's why the preferred, well, the recommended option is option 1.
So there's no chance of them chipping in?
Little chance, yeah.
Thank you. So we do have a recommendation there. Councillor Cameron, did you want to make an amendment for that? Oh, sorry, I'll go to Councillor Brown first.
I take the recommendation as it stands.
I was just, through the chair, going to clarify it's not an amendment because we don't yet have a motion.
Okay, so we'll put this motion first. Yeah, so Councillor Brown, you're happy to move this
I am.
motion?
As it is.
Which says that council works with Waka Kotahi and the heavy transport industry to reduce engine braking noise on State Highway 1 entering Ashburton.
Correct.
Councillor Brown has moved, seconded. Councillor Lovett.
Indeed.
Debate on that. Councillor Cameron.
I will vote against the motion. I think we have a perfectly good option as option 2. I think that your point, Liz, Madam Chair, was well made with regards to there are other people in town that may not be on the State Highway 1 that will benefit from the sign to say no engine braking, because I know that on the peripheral roads there's also engine braking. I think that option 2 would meet our needs and meet the needs of the community in a far greater way.
Thank you, Councillor Lovett.
I would say with only 2 complaints, I think it's just time to talk to the industry and see where we can go with that before we make drastic, putting up signs everywhere. See what talking does, and education.
Councillor Hooper.
I'm wondering if it's just a case of forgetting to flip them off, and maybe a couple of signs might help them to do that, and any reduction in noise pollution's got to be a good thing.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would have thought that having signage at each end of the town would be a reminder to truck drivers to make sure that they don't use their brakes. So while you're going to talk to them and educate them, but if you're driving, you're going to forget. But I think if you're coming into the town and you do see a sign, then it might just remind them to actually obey the rules that we want.
Councillor Brown, you want to speak?
Yeah, I've got some comments for that as well. The new trucks don't have a brake in anymore. Well, they do, but not a noisy one because it's all been changed. To be honest, I've got boy racers going around in town at night time. That they make far more noise than a couple of trucks coming through. To me, it's just a waste of space. You don't look at the sign. You hardly hear the trucks, but the boys I can hear.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I'm going to speak against the motion. I am also in favour of option 2 if option 1 fails.
Councillor Wilson.
I speak in favour of the motion because I believe that, as the staff have indicated, the education includes all local operators, and we see how that works and then go to the second, because signs will only take the honest operator will do it. There's no fines involved, there's no compliance involved, but education should help.
Thank you. We've heard from just about everyone. So I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Just keep your hands up so I can have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And against. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's carried. Thank you. Thank you both. So, sorry, Mark and Emily, we are now, we're now going to invite Bill Eschenbach from Waitaha House to come up to speak, and we're going to move into public excluded for this. So can I have someone move? here. We'll just give you a few minutes to get sorted. Thank you. And councillors, we're on, I think, page 26. Do you have anything to add, Emily or Mark?
Sorry. So this is the, I guess, the next stage in the development of the strategy in terms of putting it out for consultation. So that's essentially the purpose of the report, and welcome any feedback that you might have.
Great. We'll start with questions. Any councillors have any questions on this? Does not look like it. I know we've had a lot of workshops on this subject, and it's great to see that it's now coming to council for the recommendation. And I will read the recommendation, which says that council approve the draft economic development strategy for public consultation. If there's no questions, do I have someone who would like to move that? Councillor Brum?
Yep.
And a seconder? Councillor Lovett. Any debate? Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not really debate, but I agree with the recommendation. This is a comprehensive document, but I'd just like to encourage the fact that we cast the net far and wide to, well, as wide as possible really, to encourage all those interested to submit on this topic, because it's something that is going to affect a wide section of our local community. So we need to be trumpeting from the highest level, really.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, and I'll be voting in support of that this goes out for public consultation. My only comment is some of the timeframes are extended, but I presume they're work in progress as of today, because we want to make sure that we don't get behind with regards to economic development and that we keep the momentum moving forward. And I look at some of the timeframes with 3 years, and I promote Methven as a unique destination within our district. When that's 3 years and ongoing, I would have thought it would be 0 years and ongoing. So I just want to make sure that we keep rolling on it, so to speak. That was my only comment.
Thank you. Any other speakers in support? I'd just like to say that I think through the activity briefings where we're going through 7 pillars and everything that goes with this, having it streamlined to the 3 goals is much better, and I think we'll get better reporting on what is actually happening. So I think it's fantastic. Do I have someone who would like to move the recommend? I've done that already. So sorry. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. And thank you. Next we have item number 11, which is the draft alcohol control bylaw, and welcome Femca up as well. Does anyone have do you have anything else to add to this?
Just, I guess, this is the sort of the final stage in the process for this one in terms of adopting it to make it live effectively. So that is, happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Councillor Wilson?
I'm pleased to see you've put in the explanatory note around transport of alcohol through the zones, and it does give clarity. I'm pleased that's in there. It's well worded, and it does give clarity to people picking up their liquor from the supermarket and taking it home rather than being in breach of the bylaw.
Thank you. I've just got a question. So I see it will come into force on the 1st of June. Will that mean that the signage, and maybe this is a question for Jane, the signage will be updated by then? Because I know in Methven we had been waiting for this to go through before any signage was repainted, because it's just on the footpath, isn't it?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, that's why they've made it the 1st of June, so that this time, and I believe Rick Catchpole's already teed up the contractor with regard to the signs.
Thank you. No more questions. So we have the recommendation there. that council adopts the alcohol control bylaw as attached in Appendix 1, that council resolves the adopted alcohol control bylaw, resolves the adopted alcohol control bylaw comes into force on 1st June 2023. Do I have someone that will can move that? Councillor Todd, seconder. Councillor Brahm. Any debate? None, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you very much. Next item we have is item number 12 and councillor's report. And that's on my page 70, and we have a report there on LGNZ's Zone 5 and 6 meeting that was held at the end of April, and good to read that. Any questions on that report, Councillor Brahm?
Oh, sorry.
No questions. Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. Has, just referring to Mr McNulty on his Three Waters model, has he said he's going to review the position of CCOs. Has council had any feedback on that yet?
Hamish?
Through you, Madam Chair, we've had hopeful feedback, anecdotally, from the Minister and the NTU. My understanding is that will be revealed when the Select Committee reports back to the House on the Water Services Legislation Bill. My understanding is that's the 8th of June. So until we actually see the legislation, we won't really know how that's landed. But the signals are cause for some hope. Yeah.
Thank you. If there's no questions, I just need a recommendation that we receive this report. Councillor Lovett.
I'd like to move our report.
Councillor Ellis, second. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you. Next is the Mayor's report, and we have a recommendation there. Councillor Cameron.
I'd like to move that recommendation, please, that the council invites applications from persons interested in representing the Ashburton district on the Waitoha Primary Health Board. And the second point as well, that the executive committee be delegated to consider the applications and recommend suitable candidates for the role of the Ashburton district community representative.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Ellis. Any debate? No, I'll move that. All those in favour say aye. Against? No. Carried. Thank you. The Mayor's obviously not here to answer anything, but I just wanted to ask the Canterbury Mayoral Forum ministerial meetings, Hamish, you were there. They obviously went well. Anything else to add?
Oh no, it was through you, Madam Chair, a very interesting and valuable forum. So we had all the mayors and the chair of ECAN. We sat in a room in the Beehive, and the ministers and their officials revolved through. So we had a very efficient way of catching up with most of the senior cabinet ministers. It was really nice to, that group included Jo Luxton, now not as a cabinet minister, but now as a minister outside cabinet. So she was included. She was filling in for Damien O'Connor, the Minister of Agriculture, who was unavailable. It was assisted by Wigram MP Megan Woods. She was very instrumental in making it work on the ground. All the ministers expressed their positive views of the way in which was meeting. They described the Canterbury Mayoral Forum as one of the most connected and cohesive in the country. That they appreciated the opportunity to chew the fat in a relatively informal way with all the mayors. We had the plan for Canterbury, which the Mayoral Forum has recently reviewed and adopted the new version of, we had copies of that plan out. We tried to focus on the issues that were important to the mayors of Canterbury in that plan. And there was a lot of conversations about funding, particularly around the roading network, resilient infrastructure, the flood protection system in New Zealand, a lot of those sort of conversations. But there were issues also about social and wellbeing type needs as well. So all in all, a pretty useful day out, and I think the mayors in particular were very pleased to have had the opportunity to represent a really united and cohesive Canterbury face to some pretty senior politicians. I'm happy to answer any more specific questions. That is the forum where the new Minister of Health, Alicia Verrill, did come in with some officials, including the one that was referred to in the PE session, and we did discuss localities directly with those people as well.
Thanks, Hamish. Any questions? And Hamish, you represented the C as the chair of
Yeah, so I was the porter, really, carrying the mayor's bags on the basis that I was the current chair of the Regional Chief Executives Forum. So we were there, and the Secretariat was there as well to support the mayors with their audience with the ministers.
That's great, thank you. There's no further questions. I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Todd, thank you. All those in favour, say aye. Against, no, carried, thank you. And we're running a wee bit early, but good to see that. Oh, sorry, I'll just go to Councillor Cameron quickly. You just wanted to give us a quick update.
I did, thank you.
After our meeting at Community House this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just this morning at Community House, I had a quick chat with Sarah, who is involved in this one, who's a, what's the word, convener for the Citizens Advice Bureau, I suppose. They have printed out 3,000 of these booklets, which are like a community directory for adults, young people. I'll pass one down, thank you. And they're dropping them off all around the district, banks, schools, pharmacies, medical centres, libraries. So if anybody wants to have one of these booklets, which are a really great resource, I'd urge you to go to any of those places. And of course, Community House and see Citizens Advice, and they'll have a whole lot there as well. Thanks, Liz.
Yep, great, thank you very much for that. And they're called the Need Help Booklet 2023-24. We're a little bit early, but Alessandro is here, so welcome, and Rachel to come up to speak to us on welcoming communities.
Well, kia ora everyone. It's so lovely to meet you. This is actually my first time presenting to a council, so I'm not the biggest public speaker. So I very much apologise if I either go fast or very, very slow. But with that said, I was really excited to come down because I'm incredibly passionate about the Welcoming Communities program. I've worked in the refugee and migrant space for about the last 7 years here and overseas, and both my parents are migrants too. My mum's from Trinidad and Tobago, a tiny little island in the Caribbean, home of the West Indies, who used to be a good cricket team, and my dad used to be, and my dad is from Samoa. And so their experiences and their journey to New Zealand has really made this work incredibly close and special to me. So that is a little about me. It's always nice to know who's talking to you, and I've shared my insecurities. So my whole goal of today is to provide a bit of an overview of the Welcoming Communities program, which most of you might be familiar with. I hope to share some of the benefits and the outcomes we're trying to see in the program and how it can contribute to the strategy of well-being and economic development here in Ashburton, but also highlight some of the great work that's happened in this region too. And so, like I said, most of you might already know about Welcoming Communities. It's a settlement program that its goal is to support councils and their communities, essentially create welcoming and inclusive environment for newcomers. So it's encouraging councils to put out the proverbial welcome mat to former refugees and new migrants, international students, and really anyone that's moving from town to town or city to city. And it's built on the principle that when newcomers feel connected and included and integrated into a community, everyone enjoys the social and the cultural and the civic benefits also. The biggest point of difference with the Welcoming Communities program, though, is that it actively seeks to mobilise and involve local residents in the welcoming process of newcomers. I know from immigration we know more and more that settlement itself is a two-way process, that is much support as newcomers need. So too do local residents, and understanding just why newcomers are here and understanding the value and the contribution that newcomers make, but also understanding the challenges that newcomers can face. And so one of the outcomes the program is hoping to achieve is creating those social connections and understanding amongst all residents in Ashburton. And so you probably know Ashburton began this journey from the very beginning, joining back in 2019 as one of 10 councils to participate in this new trial program from Immigration New Zealand. Since then, we've grown in numbers to over 30 councils participate in the program. And so we're really encouraged by the enthusiasm and motivation from communities around the country who see a real benefit in ensuring that their communities are inclusive to everyone, no matter what language they speak or where they were born. And so I thought it would be really important to provide a bit of background and context of why the program exists and was started in the first place. And so just a bit of an environmental scan. New Zealand is generally considered a country with reasonably high diversity, particularly our migrant and our ethnic diversity. And that's largely attributed to our previous and ongoing migration. I think from the last census, around 27% of New Zealand's population were born overseas. Now, the conversation around migration, though, particularly in central government, tends to focus largely on national borders. But I think we know that it's communities like Ashburton that are the real nexus of the opportunities and the challenges that migration brings. And so we saw that in New Zealand, our communities were experiencing two things in particular. One, rapid growth in population and diversity, and the real need to pursue policies and practices that strengthen social cohesion and build community. Or they were experiencing relative stagnation and the challenge of attracting and retaining the skills and the talent and the workforce they need, mostly in a competitive labour market. And so when it comes to attracting a workforce, New Zealand isn't necessarily competitive in terms of high wages or salaries. And so research shows that many migrants that come here aren't here to earn a lot of money. They come for the quality of our systems and our lifestyle. And so the question then becomes, what lifestyle does Ashburton offer? And for newcomers, they'll ask, is Ashburton welcoming and inclusive enough for me to work and raise a family? Does it value diversity enough for me to want to start a business or invest? Is it culturally safe enough for me to send my child to study? So these are all really important questions. And when it comes to retention, is a whole another board game. Because then it's how we create an environment where newcomers don't just come, but they actually want to stay. And so there was a kaumātua in Tauranga when he was welcoming newcomers onto a marae in the area. He told them, we don't want you to be pot plants in our community, we want you to put down roots. And it's that sense of belonging, that sense of you're part of this garden, you're part of us. And in this program, we talk about belonging a lot. But what we do know is that a sense of belonging informs a lot of really important decisions that we make, just as humans. And for many migrants and newcomers, those decisions are, well, do I stay or do I leave? Do I participate fully in this community or do I retreat and isolate? And that has real ramifications to a community when people retreat, when they don't fully participate. Because then it means they're not volunteering their time. They're not patronizing local businesses. They're not starting their own business. They're not sharing the unique talents and ideas and contributions with the wider community. And so creating a welcoming, inclusive environment here in Ashburton is crucial. It's building a social infrastructure. And I always want to emphasize that it is an infrastructure because it requires the same amount of focus and investment and commitment than sewage or roads or waste, because it's the people of Ashburton. Now, this is probably the most exciting part, at least for me, in this presentation, because I get to talk about the great work happening here in Ashburton. Ashburton has become a leader in the welcoming space, not just here, but internationally as well. I was at the local government conference last year, where I also met Councillor McMillan, and I had a conversation with Marie Black, the Mayor of Hurunui, and they had just joined the program weeks prior, and we were talking about the journey of becoming a welcoming community and the benefits that they thought would come through the program. And she said, what inspired them to join was a document that they had in the mayoral office that they would kind of scan through from time to time as an inspiration for them to join. And it was the Ashburton Welcoming Plan. It was the ideas and it was the foresight and it was the strategy in Ashburton that inspired Hurunui to join. And not just Hurunui, we've heard that from councils and communities across the country. And so whether you know it or not, Ashburton is rapidly building a welcoming reputation. And I mentioned attraction and retention before. There was an article, and I don't know if you read it, I think last year by Professor Paul Spoonley. He's an incredibly distinguished professor in the space. And he wrote an article and stuff around New Zealand's efforts to attract and retain the workforce that they needed. And he specifically mentioned Ashburton as a place that's building a welcoming profile and as a critical effort to attract the people that they need. Not only locally, you're building a reputation internationally too. Being a welcoming community means you're connected to a global network of cities and towns and practitioners. And through that, they know about the great work that has been happening in Ashburton. Canada knows about Ashburton. US knows about Ashburton. Our partners in Australia and the UK know about Ashburton. But it's not just what is known. I've been here for 4 hours and you could already see and you could already sense the progress that's happening in Ashburton. Because at the end of the day, it's outcomes and it's what people feel about the community that they're in. You feel it when you stumble across a mural and know that you are welcomed. You feel it when you experience a cultural garden in your community and know that everyone in your community belongs. You also feel it when you go to your local library or your museum and you get the sense that everyone in your community is welcome here. And it's the sense of home that you provide people. It's a sense of home that you feel when local Ashburtons are caring and hospitable towards you. And so these are the stories we're hearing all the time from your community. And so, oh, sorry, I did not expect that at all. But I guess my point is that, let me get to my point, that all of this is making an impact. I guess that's my point. My point is that this is what leads people from being pot plants to putting down roots. Everything that you've done and everything that you're going to continue to do. And I guess my only note of caution is that communities can go backwards as much as they can go forwards. That there is still anxieties and prejudices and misunderstandings that still exist in all communities. That there's still negative perception around migration out there. And Ashburton's not immune to this, like all of our communities. And I think what COVID has done is it's exposed some of these vulnerabilities and these tension points. And so it's going to be a process going forward to be able to reconnect and reestablish these relationships and this understanding amongst each other and to rebuild Ashburton's resilience. And hopefully this program provides just one piece of that puzzle to contribute towards that. And so I'm essentially going to wrap up soon. And so the end of my spiel is really to keep up the good work. I know Ashburton is starting to develop their new welcoming plan, which we're incredibly excited about. And hopefully that plan will sit in mayoral offices around the country and inspire communities here and overseas also. I know Ashburton has also gained accreditation as an established welcoming community. One of the first communities in New Zealand to achieve that. I have no doubt that Ashburton has the potential and is ready to apply to the next stage and become the first advanced welcoming community in New Zealand. And leverage off what that means. It's a signal to the rest of New Zealand and the world that Ashburton is welcoming and is open to do business, to live, to play. And so, look, that's kind of the end of my corridor. Thank you again for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, and you're a natural presenter, so you're all good. Just see if there's any questions from councillors. Oh. Councillor Todd.
Sorry, it's not really a question, just a comment. Like I'm involved with Safford Community Council, and like at the last meeting, some of the reasons that families leave Ashburton is when their children have to go to varsity, and the whole family go. So it's not necessarily a comment that they don't like Ashburton, but it's because apparently the whole family like to go wherever the children are. So apparently we now want to encourage refugee families with a lot younger children, because then they'll stay longer before they actually go to varsity.
Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I think that was from some of the former refugees that have settled here, and we've had quite a few that have come through with older adult children. So their next step is to move to the city. But I think we will get quite a few more younger families now, which is good. Councillor Cameron.
Just thank you very much for your presentation. I agree with Liz. You're a natural at presenting, so thank you. We have a community here, the Settlement Steering Group, which we're involved with, and some of the things that have come out from those meetings are that the former refugees are not given enough money to, when they settle, as their sort of settlement allowance. Do you have any role in that? Do you advocate for them, or do you lobby for them in that role?
So I don't personally, but I do know there was an evaluation that just happened, I believe, at the beginning of this year around refugee settlement providers and settlement services. And so hopefully that captures...
Does that come, so it doesn't come through welcoming communities?
It doesn't come through welcoming communities, but welcoming communities is there to pick up those gaps. And then hopefully, because we're quite a connected network, that will feed through us here at Immigration. So it'll just be another mechanism of feeding through.
Okay. And may I ask a subsequent question? And also with our migrants, so not our former refugees, but our migrants, dependent on their visa status, their children cannot access funded university courses. Does welcoming communities go up to MB or Ministry of Ed or whatever to say, come on, what's going on here? Do you do that sort of work as well?
Yeah, and so we're always open to funneling what information and what gets received from the community. I mean, that's really all our avenue we have. Fortunately, we're not so high up that we can probably make policy changes, but we always make sure that any gaps, particularly adverse gaps, like ones in education, we make sure we feed up to whoever we can.
Because that is not welcoming our community if their children cannot attend university because they can't pay the overseas rates or whatever.
Yeah.
So we need to probably talk, and perhaps our group is going to do something about that in terms of writing letters to government officials. Be quite good to have the support of your organisation as well in that sort of exercise.
Absolutely, and I think there's also, I believe, Tony McNeil, and he has probably a very direct influence in terms of...
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but the more the better. Yeah.
I've just got a question. So we have a new welcome plan. So how does that work? So we're part of welcoming communities already. We've been accredited, is that correct? So is the next step a welcome plan? Is that how it works, or?
Yeah, so you've essentially already had a welcoming plan, and I believe it's finished a year or 2 years ago, the Ashburton Welcoming Plan. And so really it's just a refresh of the plan, really building on the existing plan and seeing what you could build on or where there might be further opportunities.
Right, okay, that makes sense, thank you. Any other questions? No, that's great, thank you very much. I think we'll break now for a cup of tea and then come back at 1:45. Yeah, sorry, Hamish.
Sorry, Madam Chair, not in relation to welcoming communities though.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. I think we are going to break now for a cup of tea and welcome you, Alessandra, to come through and have a couple with us and a bit of a chat. We'll resume at 2:45 and then we'll go into public excluded. Thank you. Hamish?
Yeah, thank you. It was just to the previous item that we discussed in relation to the three waters and the CCOs that Councillor Todd asked, and I gave the answer that at that time was correct. But while we were receiving that excellent presentation on welcome communities, we did get advice that the Minister has carved out CCOs other than Watercare and Wellington Water from the reform. So in our case, ACL has thankfully been excluded from the reform, and in fact the statement from the Minister says that their contracts with us will simply novate to be contracts with the water entities or the water entity that's relevant in the future. So the outcome that we had always understood to be the right outcome until they got caught up in the legislation. So a bit of effort and process, but we've got to where perhaps we're very happy it is. Yeah, thank you. Oh, and I